I still remember the moment I told my wife I'd been promoted. I didn't plan anything dramatic. No speech, no build-up, just a quiet dinner at home, the kind we'd shared 100 times before. I smiled, waiting for her smile to mirror mine. Instead, she cried. Not happy tears, not proud tears, the kind that come from panic. At first I told myself I was wrong. People react differently, right? Shock, overwhelm, joy mixed with fear. That's what I convinced myself of as she wiped her eyes and said, I just didn't expect this. But something about her voice stayed with me. It wasn't trembling, it was controlled. This promotion wasn't small. It meant a higher position, more responsibility, more visibility. A salary jump that would finally let us breathe after years of tight planning. It meant change. And as I watched her that night, quiet, distant, asking questions that didn't quite make sense, I realized something unsettling. She wasn't celebrating the future, she was calculating it. Over the next few days, her behavior shifted in subtle ways. She asked more about my schedule, who I'd be working with, how often I'd be traveling. The questions came wrapped in concern, but they felt rehearsed. When I joked, "You sound worried I'll forget you," she forced a laugh that arrived a second too late. I started noticing details I'd never questioned before. Her phone never left her side. She took calls in another room, lowering her voice the moment I entered. Her warmth increased suddenly, extra affection, extra care, as if she were compensating for something I couldn't yet see. Love shouldn't feel like pressure, but it did. One night, while she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself a question I'd never dared to ask before. Why would my success scare the woman who claimed to love me? If you're watching this story right now, wherever you are in the world, thank you for being here. Before we go further, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone you care about. Your support helps stories like this reach people who need them, because what I discovered next changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Asterisk. The promotion changed more than my job title. It changed the air in our house. The morning after I told her, my wife woke up earlier than usual. She made coffee, packed my lunch, kissed my cheek longer than normal. It looked like affection, but it felt rehearsed, like she was following instructions only she could see. "You'll do great," she said softly. I smiled, but something inside me tightened. Out at work, everyone congratulated me. Handshakes, smiles, slaps on the back. "You earned this," my manager said. I believed him. What I couldn't understand was why the woman who knew me best seemed unsettled by it. That evening I mentioned a welcome dinner my new team was planning. Her hand froze mid-chop when she asked, "Friday when?" I told her. She nodded, but her eyes drifted away, calculating something I wasn't part of. Later that night she asked if I'd still be home early. "I'll try," I said. She smiled again, too quick, too smooth. "I just worry," she replied. "You know, distance." Distance. The word echoed over the next week. Patterns emerged. She checked my calendar more often, asked for updates I hadn't needed to give before, started suggesting I turn down travel opportunities. "Too much stress," she'd say. "Too many people," she'd add. It sounded like care. It felt like limitation. One night I reached for her phone by accident. She snatched it back instantly. I started. "I don't like people touching my phone," she said sharply. The silence afterward was louder than the argument. We didn't have. I told myself not to overthink. Marriage requires trust, but trust shouldn't feel like blindness. Small details began piling up. Receipts that didn't match places she claimed to visit. New clothes I'd never seen before. A perfume I didn't recognize. Subtle, expensive, unfamiliar. When I asked, she shrugged it off. "Gift from a friend." Which friend, she didn't say. The strangest part wasn't the secrets. It was her sudden generosity. She praised me more, touched me more, laughed harder at my jokes, planned surprise dinners. It felt like someone trying to distract me from what I didn't know yet. One evening I came home early. Too early. She was in the shower. Phone buzzing on the counter. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The name flashing on the screen wasn't one I recognized, and somehow that scared me more than if I had that night lying beside her. I realized something painful. My promotion hadn't threatened our marriage. It had threatened her control over it. I still loved her. That was a problem. Love makes you hesitate when instinct tells you to run. Asterisk. I didn't start investigating because I wanted the truth. I started because my body already knew it. There's a moment when suspicion stops being a thought and becomes a feeling. A pressure in the chest, a tightening in the jaw, a sense that something is wrong even when everything looks normal. That's where I was. I began paying attention in silence. No questions. No confrontations. Just observation. She adjusted her routines. Left earlier. Returned later. Always with explanations that sounded reasonable. Too reasonable. Traffic. Work emergencies. A friend who needed her. Her tone changed too. Kinder, but distant. Loving, but guarded. As if she were managing me, not living with me. One night, while folding laundry, I noticed something small. A receipt fell from her jacket pocket. Coffee shop. Across town. A place she never went. The timestamp was during hours she claimed to be at work. I held the paper longer than I needed to. Not because it proved anything, because it confirmed something. She was lying comfortably. I put the receipt back. I wasn't ready to be obvious at work. My new role demanded focus, meetings, decisions, responsibility, but my mind kept drifting home to her silences, to her smiles that arrived half a second late one afternoon. My assistant mentioned something casually. "I saw your wife downtown last week." My heart skipped. I said, pretending interest, not alarm. "Yeah, she was with a guy. Looked intense. Probably work." "Probably." I nodded, smiled, went back to my office and locked the door. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat very still and replayed every memory of the last 6 months. The sudden change in intimacy, the questions about my schedule, the discouragement from traveling. It wasn't fear, it was strategy. That night, I checked our shared bank account. I hadn't done that in months. Small transfers frequent to an account I didn't recognize. Nothing dramatic, enough to hide in plain sight. I slept beside her afterward, listened to her breathing, wondered how long she'd been planning this life that didn't include me. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye. "You seem tired," she said. "I'm fine," I replied. That was my first lie. I started documenting quietly. Dates, times, locations, not for revenge, for clarity. I followed her once, just once. From a distance, she didn't notice me. She never looked back. That hurt more than I expected. She met him at a quiet restaurant. No affection at first, just familiarity, the kind that comes from repetition. They laughed, leaned close, touched hands without hesitation. I didn't stay long. I didn't need to. Driving home alone, something settled inside me. This wasn't a mistake. This was a second life. What terrified me wasn't the affair, it was how carefully she'd designed it, how invisible I'd become in my own marriage. I realized then I wasn't losing her. I'd already been replaced. I didn't confront her after that night. I didn't change my behavior. That was the hardest part, pretending. Nothing had shifted while everything inside me had. I smiled when she spoke, answered when she asked questions, touched her the same way I always had. She never suspected I knew. That hurt more than the betrayal itself. The man became a shadow in our life. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew his shape. Tall, confident, comfortable in places that weren't his. Comfortable with her. I noticed how she guarded her phone. Always face down, always locked. Never left alone with me anymore. Trust doesn't vanish loudly, it slips away quietly one evening. She mentioned a conference 3 days, another city, short notice. She watched my reaction carefully. I nodded. "Sounds important," I said. She smiled in relief. That smile stayed with me long after she went to sleep. The day she left, I stood at the window and watched her car disappear. I didn't feel abandoned. I felt released. That was when I started digging deeper. We're not following her. Following the money. I traced the transfers. They led to a private account under a different name. Not hers. Hers. It took time, favors, and quiet patience, but eventually, I found him a consultant, well-connected, recently divorced, and not recently involved with my wife. This had been going on longer than I thought. I learned something else too. It wasn't just her lover, it was her plan. Emails confirmed it carefully. Worded emotionless.transactional. They discussed timing, assets, my promotion, my reputation. She wasn't leaving me because she fell out of love. She was waiting until leaving me would benefit her most. That night, I poured myself a drink and sat alone in the dark. I've thought about all the years we'd built together, all the compromises, all the faith she hadn't destroyed. Our marriage. In a moment, she dismantled it piece by piece. When she returned from her conference, she hugged me tightly. "You okay?" she asked. "Of course," I said. And for the first time, it was true. Because I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't afraid. I was awake. I began preparing not to expose her, but to disappear from the version of my life she was trying to steal. I secured documents, moved funds legally, updated records quietly, methodically. Every move I made was invisible, just like I had been to her. She started sensing a change, asked if something was wrong. I kissed her forehead and said, "Nothing," because the most dangerous moment in a lie is when the other person stops asking questions. She began watching me the way I had once watched her. Carefully, quietly. Too late. It started with small questions. "Did you move something in the office? Have you been working late? Why do you seem distant?" I answered each one calmly, truthfully, but never completely. Distance isn't always cold. Sometimes it's clarity. I had learned more about her other life than she realized. The meetings, the plans, the timelines. She thought she was steering the future. She never noticed. I had stopped being part of her calculations. One night, she reached for me in bed. Not out of desire, out of fear. I felt it in the hesitation of her hand and the way she searched my face afterward. I held her, said nothing. Silence can be merciful. Silence can be cruel. I spent my days executing quiet exits, legal ones, clean ones. I consulted professionals she'd never know existed. Every decision framed as preparation, not escape. At work, my promotion became official. Celebrations followed. Messages, praises. She basked in it, my success, finally paying off for her plan. That night, she toasted me to us, she said. I smiled. To timing, I replied. Her lover grew impassioned. I saw it in their messages. He wanted action. She wanted precision. They argued not about love, but leverage. That's when I understood something important. I wasn't the only one being used. I began pulling back suddenly, but steadily. Less availability. More solitude. She responded with affection, then irritation. Control doesn't like to be loosened. One evening, she accused me of hiding something. I looked at her for a long moment. I think we both are, I said. She laughed it off, but her eyes didn't. The house felt different, like a place already abandoned. We moved around each other like polite strangers, two actors waiting for their cue. I packed a bag and left it in my car just in case. I didn't plan to run, but I planned to leave on my terms. The final document was signed quietly. Everything legal. Everything fair. Everything invisible. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her breathe, knowing this was the last time I would ever feel this close to her. I wasn't angry, I wasn't broken, I was finished. The morning everything changed, felt ordinary. That was the cruelest part. She stood in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, pretending to listen while I spoke about nothing important. Coffee steamed between us. Sunlight filled the room. A perfect disguise. I'd already arranged my departure. Not dramatic, not emotional, just final. At work, I resigned from the position she'd been waiting to benefit from. Quietly, respectfully. No announcement, no celebration, just a signature and a closed door. By the time she texted me that afternoon, something feels off. Are you okay? I was already gone from the version of life she was tracking. I didn't answer, not because I wanted to punish her, but because answers create negotiation. I checked into a hotel under my middle name, turned off shared locations, closed doors she didn't even know existed. She called that night, once, twice, then repeatedly. I watched the phone light up and felt nothing. When I finally answered, my voice was calm. I know, I said before she could, speak. Silence swallowed the line. She denied it. Of course she did. Denial is the first reflex of someone who's never been questioned. I told her I wasn't interested in explanations. I'm leaving, I said. That's all. Her voice cracked, not with regret, with fear. She tried anger. Next, accusations, blame, revision of history. I listened. Then I hung up the next day. Her lover vanished. I don't know what she told him, I don't care. Plans collapse when one piece refuses to stay in place. Lawyers contacted her before I did. Everything documented. Everything fair. Everything irreversible. She showed up at the hotel, eyes red, voice shaking. She wanted closure. She wanted control back. I met her in the lobby. Public spaces discourage lies. You ruined everything, she said. I nodded. I know. She waited for more. Apologies, anger, desperation. She got silence. I walked past her without touching her, without hating her. That was the moment she understood. She hadn't won, she hadn't lost, she'd been left behind. That night, alone, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Because she was gone, but because I was finally free of pretending. Freedom doesn't arrive like happiness. It arrives quietly. The first weeks after leaving felt unreal, like I was living inside borrowed time. No arguments, no explanations, no pretending, just space. I moved cities, not to escape her, but to step out of the life she had designed around me. A smaller apartment, new routines, different mornings. She tried reaching out through mutual friends, through messages, framed as concern, through apologies that arrived too late to matter. I didn't respond. Closure is not a conversation, it's a decision. At night, memories returned. Without warning. The way she laughed before everything changed. The version of her I had loved honestly. Grief doesn't ask permission. But grief wasn't stronger than clarity. I no longer wondered why she did it. I understood who she was, and that was enough. Her lover resurfaced once, not to threaten, to ask questions he had been promised. Things that vanished when I stepped away had told him the truth. Nothing more, nothing less. I wasn't the only victim, just the one who walked away intact. Time began working differently. Days felt longer, nights calmer, slept without tension for the first time in years. One evening, I received the final papers, everything settled, no disputes, no surprises. She signed quickly, as if ending it cleanly. Might erase what she'd done. I didn't celebrate, I exhaled. I met someone months later. Not love, not yet, just kindness. And that felt revolutionary. She never asked about my past. She listened when I spoke, and when I stopped, she didn't push. That's how I knew I was healing. I heard once that my ex had moved again. Changed jobs, changed cities, still running, still chasing control. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger requires attachment. I had learned something rare. Being the victim doesn't mean being powerless sometimes. It means surviving quietly and leaving without burning the house down. Asterisk the day I finally closed the last chapter of that life. I felt weightless. No alarms, no dramatic exit, no speeches, just the sound of doors closing behind me. I walked through the city streets like a man who had been invisible, and suddenly could be seen. Every step reminded me of the silence I'd carried for months, the careful observation, the secrets I'd uncovered without confrontation. I didn't run, I moved deliberately because leaving wasn't about escape. It was about reclaiming control over my own life. Her messages came sporadically. Can we talk? I made a mistake. I miss you. I didn't answer. Silence was my final message. I rented a small apartment downtown, furnished it simply, minimalist, quiet, my own space, for the first time in years. I didn't need permission to exist. People notice when you stop reacting. She noticed. Her plans unraveled quietly. The lover she had carefully woven into our lives became a shadow. Everything she had controlled no longer had power over me. Some nights I remembered our early days, the laughter, the warmth, the love that had been real once. Before manipulation crept in, it didn't hurt anymore. It was a memory I could keep without it consuming me. I met someone new eventually, not to replace her, not to erase the past, just to feel connection again, healthy, honest, and mutual. I learned that love is not always enough. Sometimes survival is the greater act of courage, and leaving quietly, without confrontation, can be the most powerful statement of all. If you're watching this story right now, wherever you are in the world, thank you for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with your loved ones. Your support keeps these stories alive.